I'm so grateful to be here with you guys today. I have a lot of affection for Franklin. Franklin will always kind of be a space for me. You guys will, this campus always will. I've been a pastor for 25 years. I've been sober for the last 5.5 of those. And, you know, when I got out of treatment, I really didn't know what God was going to do with my life. And he opened the door for us to start working in treatment centers. And that's where Southeast Recovery was born out of in 2021. And I really felt like that would be it. And I didn't feel like there would be a time where I would be preaching in churches anymore, and one of the first times that I got to preach in a church again was here at Franklin campus. And so there's a piece of affection for me. Anytime I get asked to come back to Franklin, it's a big deal. So I'm so glad to be with you all this morning. And I'm also just grateful to be able to celebrate some stuff with you because I lead our Southeast Recovery Ministry. And this week and weekend, we'll be worshiping in 20 different locations across the state of Kentucky and Tennessee, and then spread out kind of across the United States in substance abuse treatment facilities, in jails and prisons, and then also sex trafficking, stabilization, and rehabilitation facilities, okay? And one of those that we get to worship, that we get to be a part of, we get to be present in, is the Next Door, which is in downtown Nashville. And it's a part of our MOVE initiative. They have a really fancy way of saying it. I'm not real polished like that. We move closer to something Adam probably knows. But I know that we basically, all I say, we want to pull a seat up beside people that are in broken places. If you're in a broken place, we want a seat next to you. And we've just seen God do some incredible things like he does. Like Jesus, when you show up with Jesus, when people are in that spot, he just does some things. And it's the Next Door is one of those. It's a substance abuse treatment facility in Nashville for ladies. They prioritize, give some love for them. They prioritize ladies that are pregnant or houseless or underinsured. And we just love that place. We love that place. We love we've seen God do there. I want to share a couple of stories about that because your guys' connection to there is really what allows us to be there. We're in 20 different places, and one of the places next door, but we're allowed to be there worshiping and ministering and letting Jesus pull up a seat next to people in broken places because of Franklin campus, because of you all. And one of the stories that happened out there was a lady who you'll learn if you love somebody that struggles with substance abuse, you realize that healing is not a straight line. There's steps forward and there's steps back, and it's a challenge. And we had a lady, one of the first ladies that we baptized down there, who completed the program and left and started kind of her journey or her trajectory towards a new life. And in substance abuse, my friend Robbie that's here, we talk about it all the time. They'll start to get sober and things start to go really well. And then there's this one phrase that we hear that makes us cringe when they're like, Matt, I met a girl, or they'll say, Matt, I met a guy. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh no, and this girl thought she met the perfect guy. And what she met was a guy who was a part of sex trafficking industry. And so after they got together, she spent several months in a spot where she was held captive, and that was her life. And through a course of interventions and people, God just intervened in things in her life, she got to where she got a phone number from a lady, and she got access to a phone. The only thing she was allowed to have, she told us, was she kept her life recovery Bible that she had got from us while she was at Next Door. And she had a closet that she just wrote prayers in. And she got access to a phone and was able to make a phone call, and she called a lady, and the lady came to get her and said, where do you want to go? And she goes, you got to get me back to Next Door. Just take me back to Next Door. What happens there, I was safe there. That church was there. Just get me back to Next Door. Another lady that came in, had struggled, relapsing over and over and over again. And it had come to the beautiful thing in recovery we call the end of ourselves. When you come to the end of yourself, that's when you can really move. But that's a very terrifying, hopeless place to be if the thing that you've been relying on to try to survive the life or to feel normal in life is now no longer working anymore. And her mom hounded her, and so she said she went to treatment. She went to Next Door just so her mom would shut up. The hopelessness that she was feeling was real enough that she had picked the date that she was going to end her life. And I felt led to this in the first service, and I feel this again too, man. If you're here today and you are struggling with that, if you have thoughts in your head that this is too hard, that you want relief that bad, I am begging you to come talk to us after the service. I'll be here. There's no shame in that. So please, if that is something that you wrestle with, just know you don't have to wrestle alone today. And maybe through the message of taking a step with God, maybe that'll be it, but just know we're here. But this lady had picked that date and went to treatment just so her mom would shut up. And she'd been in treatment a couple of days, and the church service was happening. And she came to the service and she heard one of the messages that we played that was talking about shame. And God did something in her life. And that date that was gonna be the date that her life was gonna end became just another day on the calendar. She's sober now and working as a career back as a hairdresser. And I need you guys to know those things happen because you are there. Because Franklin campus is there, those things are happening. And I really misquoted a figure in the first service, and I get to fix it today. The amount of people, ladies that have said yes to following Jesus in baptism is there. And is anybody here this morning that was at Next Door this morning? Hey, raise your hands up. Which one of y'all has wet sleeves? There you go, in the back. She showed up this morning with wet sleeves. How many ladies gave their life to Jesus this morning? 13. Say it louder. 13. 13 ladies this morning said, and now listen, I told him, I said, I'm gonna go full WWE on that. I'm an excitable guy. I get excited about chili dogs, a good baseball game. I get excited about everything. 13 ladies this morning that showed up at maybe the most broken moment of their life said yes to Jesus because Franklin campus is present at the Next Door, okay? So, do me a favor. I know the Masters just ended. Get your golf clap out of the way, and let's get excited that 13 ladies just gave their life to Jesus this morning, okay? Thank you. Thank you. All told, man, there's been 126 women who have said yes to Jesus since we started working at the Next Door and you guys started helping us. And so, man, just know I have a deep love for this Franklin campus, and I'm so grateful to be here with you. And now let's start the sermon, all right? So we're in Genesis chapter 12, and I told you, I catch a resentment because Tammy puts a countdown clock on that screen up there, and I'm like, put some tape over that. We'll see. We're in Genesis chapter 12, and I love it that we're walking through Genesis as a church, and I'm gonna do my best. Kyle is next level communicator, man. Even when he's not good, he's good. You know what I mean? And there's some I'm listening, I'm like, man, that wasn't his best, but it was still solid stuff, you know what I mean? He also has the best hair this side of Hollywood. I love telling him that. He was gonna go to Next Door a couple weeks ago. He was down there with his family, and he was like, I'm gonna stop by the Next Door. And I said, I need to warn the ladies before you show up because we're showing this How You Feeling series from 2019. And I said, I love you, dog, but you've aged, bro. You don't look like you did 2019. You ain't. One thing Kyle is not into is Just for Men because he's got a lot more gray now than he did in 2019. Being here, man, can I give you a shout out to your campus pastor? Bryson is a good dude. He's just a good dude. You hang out with me for more than 10 minutes and you're gonna realize the only thing good about Matt Robinson is Jesus is that they're trying to do something. You know what I mean? But man, Bryson is just such a good dude. He loves you. He loves this church. He loves this mission. And you just got a good dude, man. You got a good dude to follow. But I'm gonna do my best to unpack Genesis 12 a little bit. I'm doing my best. I asked the first, do you have anybody in the room that does not like to rewatch movies? Anybody like that? Raise your hand, please raise your hand. I need some participation today. Okay, all right, thank you for being honest. My wife is like that. I'm like, let's watch this movie. She's like, no, I've already seen it. And I'm like, I know, but it's good. It's good, we should watch this again. She goes, I don't wanna watch it. Let's watch this movie. And I'm like, this doesn't make logical sense to me. We're gonna watch a movie that may not be good in favor of a one that we know is good. That doesn't make sense to me. But she's like, I already know what's gonna happen. So as I'm getting into Genesis 12 today, I'm trying my best to not jump ahead in Abraham's life and get into the stuff that's gonna come. I wanna live in Genesis 12 with you all as we talk about taking this journey with God. And today's really just about taking that first step with him. So let's look at Genesis 12 together, the first few verses of it. Genesis 12, verses 1-3, it says this: the Lord said to Abram, leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go to the land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous. You will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who treat you with contempt. all the families on earth will be blessed through you. This is the beginning of this interaction between God and Abram. And man, let's just get real for a second. That's a really big ask, right? Could you imagine going home and telling people in your family like, hey, pack up everything. We're moving away from everything we've known. And it's like, where are we going? And it was like, I don't know yet. You know, that's not gonna land very well, I think, to the people that are around you. That's a really big ask. I think sometimes we read scripture, and because if we've been around church for very long, you know, or even if we haven't, like we have this idea of like Bible people deserve up on this pedestal, you know what I mean? And it's wild to me that we do that I do that, because if you read throughout their life, you realize they were just normal people with lots of really broken places in their life. You know, they were just normal human beings. I told you, we get excited. I told you. You know, Bryson's back there breaking stuff right now, like excited. No, he's out front, never mind. Somebody's breaking stuff. Good news is, it's like, man, like you know, this is, as parents, you know when you're in a restaurant, or if you have young kids, you know when you hear a kid cry and it's not yours, how relieving that is? I didn't do that. You know what I mean? Somebody broke something in the back and I'm on video camera. I was nowhere near it, you know, so I cannot get in trouble for that. But in Genesis, you know, he's reaching out to Abram, and this is a really big ask. Okay, this is a big ask for him to be able to do that. But let's don't over spiritualize this. Let's don't miss it. It's just there's a human being that's answering this call. Okay, like this is a really big ask. And don't look at it and think, well, we know the movie that we've already seen and we know how this is going to end. Land back in this moment where God comes to him and says, leave your native country, which means leave everything you've ever known, leave your relatives, which means leave your support system, and leave your father's family, which leave your reputation, leave all of those things and go to a land that I will show you to go to. Leave all of that stuff that is comfortable and go to something that I will show you. You know, I think one of the purpose of this message, I think, according to what Kyle put out, was just some practical steps for us as we're trying to start this journey with God. Because every journey starts with a step, right? It starts with just the first step. You've got to make the first one before you can do anything else. So the first practical thing that I want us to process when it comes to just following God on this journey is, man, you need to focus on the promises that he gives you, and you need to focus on the problems and pain that are gonna come along this journey. Focus on the promises, but also focus on the problems or the pain that is gonna come on this journey. Because we know if you watch any good movie that you watch, like of those journeys they go on, what they get to at the end is celebrated and embraced largely because of who they became throughout the course of that journey. If God is calling you to something, you've got to focus on the promises of what is there, but you've got to leave space for the difficulty and the challenges that are going to come. Because when we start stepping into following God, especially in an ask, which to Abram, this is a huge ask, to leave everything that you're familiar with, leave everything that you've leaned on, leave your reputation, go to this thing. That's a big ask. You've got to focus on the problems. But what I said, ask. I just don't enunciate sometimes all the way, okay? Like it's like Adam was already looking at me, was like, no, I didn't, but I said ask. I just don't enunciate. That's a big deal, okay? That's a big step for him. You've got to focus on the promises of what's going to be there, because there's going to be discouragement and there's going to be disappointment and there's going to be moments along this journey where you're going to want to stop and go, golly, is this really what you asked me to do? And you've got to leave space for the problems and the pain. And the way that I love to do this has been super helpful for me, that my therapist taught me, was to really try to start using the word and when I'm describing things, and stop using the word but when I'm describing things. Because when you put these two statements together, like you're on a journey and you hit some difficulty or discouragement, the tempting thing for me to do is to use the word but. Like I thought you were called, God, you called me to do this, but. And when I say the word but, it stops it. It like nullifies everything that God has said or everything that God had done or any promises that was there. Like, you know what I mean? I was called to ministry and I struggled with addiction. And so what my mindset was, God, you called me into ministry, but I struggle with addiction. And when I use the word but, it's like it stops it and it nullifies it. And I don't know, maybe you can relate as you've been on this journey that you've been on with God for your entire life, or however long it's been, whether it's 6 weeks or 6 months or 60 years, you've been on this journey with God and you felt like God was calling you to something, and you got down that path a little bit, and then you hit something hard and you think, okay, God, I thought you were calling me to this, but how much does that whole thing change if you just take the word but out and put the word and in there? God, you called me to ministry and I struggle with addiction. It opens a pathway for me to continue into this journey or this path that God has called us on. So the first practical thing for us when it comes to following God is just to use the word and instead of but, to leave space to focus on the promise that God has given you, but also the problems and the pain that are gonna come along this journey. Because man, it's a journey as we continue towards God. It's like the closer you get to the sun, right? The physical sun up in the sky, that big orange thing that's hot. The closer you get to that, the hotter it gets. The hotter it gets, the more that is burned away. It's similar to me. I think the more that I'm trying to follow Jesus, the closer I get to the sun, the more of me that's getting burned away. And that doesn't feel really good. That doesn't feel really good. So maybe the discouragement or the disappointment or the thing that hits for you is like, God, I thought you called me down this path, or God, I felt like you were calling me to this, and then I hit this thing, and I want to say but we put the word and in there. God, I thought you were calling me to be vulnerable this morning and just to reach out for help, because I can't quit thinking about how much better this world would be if I wasn't here, but no, and there's a place I can go right now. The first practical thing when we start to follow Jesus we follow God on this journey is that we leave space for the promises and the problems and the struggle that we have. But I'm not as fancy as Bryce, and I'm not used to this iPad thing. It messes up. C.S. Lewis said this: we are not necessarily doubting that God will do what's best for us, but we sure are wondering how painful the best will turn out to be. Like, how much is this gonna cost me? Leave space for the problems and the pain. And because those things are there doesn't mean that he didn't call you down this path. I'm called to ministry. I wanna be a good daddy. I wanna be a present partner and husband to my wife, Christy Brooke. And what was so tempting because of shame was to put in there, I want to be a good partner and husband to Christy Brooke, but I struggle with addiction. And I get to stand today and say, I want to be a partner, a good partner and husband to Christy Brooke, and I struggle with addiction. There's a path. You're telling me there's a chance, like I can keep moving. I'm not disqualified because it's there. That's the first practical, tangible thing. Like, don't lose sight of the promises. Don't lose sight of what God told him he was gonna do, because he told him it was a big ask, but there's some really big promises in there. I will make you into a great nation. If I'm Abram, I'm going, what does that even mean? What does it mean to be a great nation? I will bless you and make you famous. You will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who treat you with contempt. And can I say I'm real glad God didn't give me that? Because I don't know, now traffic down here is pretty wild too, but in Louisville, man, on the Watterson, it's a road that runs kind of across the city like this. They don't even know, they've been there. I don't know why it's 4 lanes. It's a 1 lane to get on 65, but all 4 lanes are stopped because of that 1 lane. And I don't understand. Why are we 3 lanes removed and I can't go because you're turning right 4 lanes over? I'm really glad God's because that's contempt, God. They are treating me with contempt. Get them, you know. But don't miss the promises. It's a big ask, but there's also some really big promises attached to that. So don't lose sight of focus on the promises, but also focus on the problems. Remove that word but, or the best you can, just try to start substitute and into that. The next thing, let's read verses 4, 5, and 6 together. So Abram departed as the Lord had instructed, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all his wealth, his livestock, and all the people he had taken into his household at Haran, and headed for the land of Canaan. When they arrived at Canaan, Abram traveled through the land as far as Shechem. There he set up camp beside the oak of Moreh. And at this time, this area was inhabited by the Canaanites. So Abram gets the big ask. Abram sees focuses on the promises. The next practical thing for us that I want us to take for this, if we're trying to follow God on this journey, is that don't go alone. Don't go alone. You know, this is the longest that I've been sober since I was 13 years old. You know, and I was processing with my friend Robbie on the way down here. You know, I was with some guys yesterday that are a part of like what my life looks like now and helping me to live this thing out one day at a time. And we were talking about how God like has brought people into our lives. And it was like, man, when I think about it, how in the world have you know, that was because you know the one thing I feel like Matt Robinson can give you advice on, it's how to blow up my life. You know, I've seen me do it a lot. You know what I mean? I can tell you how to do that. You want to blow your life up? Self-destruct in 3 steps. Come see me, because I've got a lot of experience in that. It is a hard 90 degree. It is a miracle from God that I have not blown my life up in the last 5.5 years. It is a miracle from God. And so when I think about that miracle from God, and I was sitting in this room yesterday, and it was like, man, how in the world have you not blown your life up in the last 5.5 years? And it's like, man, I'm sitting there looking, and I see Jeff, and I see Nate, and I see Eric, and I see Jacob, and I see William, and I see Joseph in that room. And there's another room I'm in that I see Jeff and Jerry and Obed and Chris and Alex and Steve. And then I text some guys every morning, Robbie and Jeff. Another Jeff, there's a lot of Jeffs. Robbie and Jeff, Al, Chris, Cole, Puckett. I just named off like 25 people. You know, like if I wanted to blow my life up right now, I would have to suit up in Kevlar and get a tank and run through like 25 people to do that. I've got so many people around me that are on the same journey as I am. And what the beautiful thing about having that many people around me is that not all of us are crazy at the same time. You know what I mean? Like that's a good thing for folks like me. The chances, like there's like 7 of us in a group, 6 of us can be spun up and really about to make a really bad decision. But there's at least one of us that goes, all right, hold up, boys, hold up. Let's think about that. Because I don't know about you, but I hear things different with my brain than I do with my ears. Anybody get some good ideas up here, and then you say them out loud, and you're like, whoa, that doesn't sound near as good. You know, it sounded really good up here. I could fix everything for government to where this church is headed right up here. You know what I mean? I got it all. I could run this thing better than Chick-fil-A, you know? Because I'm telling you, man, like if the Chick-fil-A drive-through, if you want to, like, if I don't know what they do, but they do it, you know? I could fix it right here, but then I say that stuff out loud, and all of a sudden it's like, man, that doesn't sound near as good as it did when I was thinking it. And that's how's Matt Robinson not blown his life up? How's the miracle of God been seen in his life? Because I just named off close to 25 people that are in my life. If you're gonna follow God on this journey, you're gonna take the step of following him. Don't go alone. Don't go alone. The tricky part with that is to not go alone with means you're gonna have to let people see you on this journey. And if they see you on this journey, it's like they're gonna be able to see you when you're not all buttoned up. They're gonna see you with things that struggle. They're gonna see you moments that aren't your best. They're gonna see you moments when you fall. They're gonna see moments when you go back to doing the thing that you said you were never gonna do. But to not go alone is a moment of being vulnerable where you say like, hey, be on this journey with me. This is what I'm doing. I think this is where God has taken me. Like you have to let people see you struggle. And that goes against the core of what we have as American Christians. They let people see us struggle. Now, I watched it happen last night. My friend shared a vulnerable thing at the table, and it was instantly, as soon as he did that, a person across from the table from him started sharing something about their life. To not go alone on the journey means that you're gonna have to let people see you in the spot where you're not at your best. You're gonna have to let people see you struggle. I was at church with a good friend of mine who's on this journey back to God, and he's had a lot of things pop and a lot of things in his life and a lot of things about him that he feels like he doesn't belong, okay? And so we sat down at one of our services at the main campus, and he was sitting beside me, and in front of us was a good friend of mine. And my friend's also in long-term recovery, a good friend of mine in front of me that's in long-term recovery. And he's also my clinical supervisor. And we're talking, and my friend leans over to me and goes, man, I was freaking out. And I'm like, okay, like what? He was like, man, I sat down in here and I looked around the room and I started seeing people and I started thinking, everybody in this room is incredibly wealthy. Everybody in this room is way smarter than me. Everybody in this room has their life together. And then he goes, and something happened. And I said, what? He goes, I looked at you. And then I was like, I looked around the room and I think everybody's got this thing figured out. And I looked at you and I thought, I know he ain't got it figured out. And then my friend in front of us, they used to run an addiction together, and he was like, I know he doesn't have it figured out. He said, so then I started looking around the room and going, what if everybody in this room is just trying to figure it out? What if everybody here is just doing the best they can, trying to figure it out? And he said, I look around and I feel totally different being here. Franklin campus, can I encourage you to posture yourselves like that? Can you just be a room full of people that are trying to figure it out? Can you be a room full of people that's just showing like, hey, this is where I'm at today and it's not good. Like, I don't feel the pressure. This morning I walked into Starbucks to get iced coffee because I have turned into a diva for iced coffee, and it really goes against my core of how I was raised better than that, okay? I was raised better than that. But I do, man, Robbie was making fun of me yesterday because I gotta have it now. It's just one of those things. But I walked in and she goes, how are you doing? And my first response was, I'm good. And I was like, no, wait, I'm really anxious. I'm getting ready to go preach at this campus, and I'm just freaked out about that a little bit. There's a lot of Christians in there, and I get nervous, But can I encourage you to be a campus that's just a room full of people trying to figure it out? To be a room full of people that's like, I don't know, I'm trying. I don't know if this is the best or the right, but I'm trying. I'm just trying. Going on this journey with God, like, don't go alone. And to go with somebody means you're gonna have to let them see. You're gonna have to let them see you struggle. The other piece of this that I don't want is the next practical thing for us as we're trying to follow God is don't miss the spiritual. I love what was at the end of this in verse 6. It writes this. Abram traveled through the land as far as Shechem, and then he came up beside the oak of Moreh. And at that time, this area was inhabited by the Canaanites. And this literally hit this morning. I was reading this text again this morning when I was laying in the bed at that True Hotel or whatever it was called. And I was like, why did they mention the oak of Moreh? Like, what's that a big deal? So I look, because it's like there's something specific, the oak of Moreh, not a oak of Moreh. Like, there's probably more than one oak there, but they named that one. And so I started researching it a little bit, and what I found out was that, like, that was known to the Canaanite people of the land, that it was called the oracle tree. And oracle, if you watch any movies, like that was like they go to the oracle to kind of get supernatural or spiritual knowledge or try to get insider wisdom about what they should do. And this was known as the oracle tree to them. And so what's the first thing that God does when he sends Abram on a thing? He shows up and puts an altar slap beside that sucker. You know what I mean? And it's like, I love that. So if you're on this journey with God, don't miss the spiritual. Don't miss the spiritual part of what is happening with you, okay? Because when you read scripture, like I've flown by that a lot in my life and would have missed that God was sending Abram, not just on a journey for him, but it was a journey. There was other spiritual things that are going on. Because in that time, there's a reason that the first commandment from God was, don't have any other gods before me. Okay, and we like to pretend or like maybe convince ourselves that this was all just made up stuff, and it's not. Like, they were going there and getting some type of outside knowledge or something that was more, that was bigger than what we have here on this planet. Like, they were getting something from this. All this history where people were worshiping and doing the things they do. Like, if you read Solomon and they built the altar for Molech, like the stuff that you had to do to worship the god Molech, to think that somebody would do that just for mass control of humanity is ridiculous. They were getting something from it. And God sent Abram on a mission to let him know that the lowercase g gods was fixing to get replaced. I mean, it was like, are you getting 90 babies in the house? No Montel Jordan. I used to be a lowercase g. Any of them in here? Any 90 babies in here? None. Okay, we got, Bryson, get to work, bro. All right? But it was like, let him know the lowercase g gods are being replaced. You used to have to come to this thing to get insight, but why when you walk up to this tree that you've been going to get, it's like, whoa, what is that? What's this thing right here? It's the uppercase G God has shown up in the house. And you don't have to go back to that same thing anymore, which in the spiritual sense for us, like what happened at Next Door this morning for 13 women was the thing that they've been going to try to make normal bearable had been replaced by the uppercase G God that showed up for them. And so when you're on this journey with God, don't miss the spiritual side of things. And this is something I still struggle a lot with. You know, my wife leads an organization called Teach to Transform. And she travels all over the world doing trauma counseling and things. And she left this morning at 5:30 to travel to South Sudan. She only goes places that you're not supposed to go, okay? And somebody's like, why do you let her do that? And I'm like, well, she doesn't ask. Like, like I don't really get a say in that stuff. She's like, I'm going to Nigeria. It's like, okay, I'll cut the grass and watch the kids, you know. But you know what's wild this week before she left, and Eddie asked me to come preach at Franklin this past week, so that's what's going on in my family's life right now, my marriage right now. And this past week, it was wild. Everything I did got on her nerves this week. And that's not, I'm an exemplary human. You know, there's no way that what I'm doing could be annoying to you. You know what I mean? And this week, she didn't give me enough attention. She was focused on her work a lot this week. And so we were fussing. We were fussing about it. And I would love to say that the spiritual preacher, Matt, was like, you know what? This is spiritual. You're getting ready to go to an orphanage with 600 kids and train teachers how to be trauma informed and show kids who have been displaced because of civil war, 13 years of civil war, how God loves them where they're at and can heal all the broken pieces. And I'm gonna get to come to Franklin and talk about all this stuff that God is doing in the lives of our church and everybody else. We just need to pray for unity. And I was about 45 minutes down I-65 yesterday before I got that. Don't miss the spiritual. Don't miss the spiritual. I think we don't want to over-spiritualize it because, you know, like the devil is a created being. He can't be everywhere all the time. God is the only one that can be everywhere all the time. So that flat tire you had on Tuesday, was that really the devil? Slim chance. I don't think so. I don't know if the devil was in your driveway going, got her. You know? Like I don't know that was happening. I'm not saying it wasn't because I didn't see it, but we give the devil too much credit. He can only go one place at a time. But don't discount the spiritual side of what's going, because what would have been better for the enemy? For her to be in South Sudan, and instead of being fully focused on how can I bring show a path for wholeness for these kids and these teachers that are working with these kids, in the back of her mind is like, man, Matt was acting real distant. I hope he's not relapsed again. I'm out of town. What happens if he relapses and I'm gone and the kids are there? What would have been better for the enemy than to have her heart and mind divided? What would have been better than for me to show up and thinking, man, like, she doesn't care enough about you. The only thing this addict loves more than a justified resentment is some self-pity. I don't know about y'all, I love me some self-pity. I will put that stuff on like a warm blanket and just lay in it all day long, you know? Don't miss the spiritual. If you're saying yes to following God, focus on the promises, but also make space for the problems that are gonna come. Use that word and. Don't try to go alone and don't miss the spiritual. Let's read the last few verses, 7 through 9. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, I will give this land to your descendants. And Abram built an altar there and dedicated it to the Lord who had appeared to him. After that, Abram traveled south and set up camp in the hill country, and with Bethel to the west and Ai to the east. There he built another altar and dedicated it to the Lord, and he worshiped the Lord. Then Abram continued traveling south by stages toward the Negev. You know, they still what's happening in this, like you see this journey that Abram's been on, right? It's like leave everything, this is a big ask, and then go. And so he goes and he lands at the Oak of Morah and he sets up an altar to let everybody know the lowercase g gods is fixing to get replaced. And then he moves to the next place and he puts an altar up there. And I love it that when he put the altar up, it says, then the Lord spoke to him. You know that Phil Wickham song, and I'm not trying to give an extra shout out to him, but that song, now those altars in the wilderness tell the story of your faithfulness. There's a line in one of his songs, and that it makes me almost cry every time I read it, because there were so many times I prayed and it felt like there was nothing. And I look back on those times in the wilderness now, and I know I know what God was building. I know what God was putting in place. I know what God was doing. You know, faith hopefully gives us the courage to keep going. Hindsight lets us see what God was up to. Faith hopefully gives us the courage to keep stepping. But hindsight let us look back and be like, oh God, that's what you were up to then. There's a phrase we use in recovery. It's called do the next right thing. Because man, we can snowball some stuff and we can make a mountain out of a molehill. Like we put stuff together and it's like there's a really simple, just do the next right thing. Because if you notice about Abram's story is there's still not anything about like what the plan is gonna be. You know, he just said, go to the land. It was like, okay. So he went and there was a place, so he put an altar up and he moved to the next place and he put an altar up. But there's still nothing about like where this whole thing is gonna end or what's gonna come next. You know, maybe you're in that spot right now where you're wrestling with God, like he's called, like you feel like I'm supposed to take a step or I'm supposed to step into this. And the thought process naturally for I think us as humans is that we want to go, well, if I could just see how this was going to turn out, then it'd be a lot easier for me. You know, God, so like, you know, that verse Psalm 119, 105 says your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. You know, God, this is the 21st century and I know lamps are what they had back then, but we've got these things now like these spotlights and they're million candle watt. Which side note, how do they even measure that? Did somebody put 1,000,000 candles together and go, that's how bright it was? You know what I mean? Like that doesn't make any sense to me, but I know it's way brighter than a lamp. And so it's really tempting for us as people that we are naturally bent. I think we are programmed for comfort and control. Every human being needs to feel safe. That's what we're after. We're after safety. And we think safety comes from comfort and control. And so we think that if I could just shine this light down the path and I could see what was coming, it would be a lot easier for me to take this step. It'd be a lot easier for me to go. But can I tell you what's been true in my life? If God would have shown me what the last 5.5 years have been with, there's a lot of great things that happened. There's also been some incredibly challenging, hard things that have happened. And if God would have let me see everything that I was gonna go through at that moment, I know me, I wouldn't have had the courage to go. I wouldn't have had the courage to go. If I'd have seen all the difficulties that was gonna come, I'd have checked out. So sometimes the most merciful thing that God can do for us is just give us a lamp. Your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. And the reality is, lamps don't give off a lot of light. If you want to see a step, you've got to take a step. And what happens for us as humans when we start taking those steps, and we start taking those steps, and we start taking those steps, the trust that we have starts to build. I don't have to have this whole thing figured out. I got to pray with a man after first service. You don't have to have this whole thing figured out. You got to take this step today. It's a step to say you can't do this on your own. And the most merciful thing God does for us is he just lets us see that next step that's there. Franklin, what's that step for you? What's the journey that God is calling you on? I love celebrating what's going on at the next door. But I also know there's a lot of guys that struggle with substance abuse down here. I know there's a prison, and what I found out is I thought this was Franklin County, but I'm an idiot. It's Williamson County. There's a jail in Williamson County right now with people that are in broken places. There's a girl right now tying up her arm on the streets of Nashville, hoping she don't wake up. Hoping she don't wake up. Is God calling you to step into that? There's kids right now that don't have a home. They don't have a home to go to. Is God calling you to take that step? You don't have to see 5 steps down the road. All you got to see is right now, and it's just do the next right thing. That's the last bit of practical stuff I get from this. It is, man, focus on the promises and give space for the pain. Don't try to go alone. Don't miss the spiritual, man, and just do the next right thing. I don't know what this is going to look like down the line, but I just know in this moment, I need to take this step. Because every step starts every journey starts with a step. Like, you've got to do something. If you want something to be different, we've got to do something that's be different. If you want the church in America to be known for just people that get together to promote ourselves and feel better about ourselves, if you want the narrative around being a follower of Jesus to be those are the people that showed up when I was in my most broken state, if you want that to be what Christianity is known for in this country instead of just what it's known for across a lot of other things, then somebody's got to do something different. Somebody's got to say yes to just stepping into a spot. And I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like 5 years down the road. I don't know what it's going to look like 5 months down the road. But I do know the word is a lamp for us, and there's a step that you can take. And man, this is a morning for you to take it. 13 girls, 13 ladies. Don't mean to be disrespectful by picking something that makes they're young, because they're not. 13 ladies stepped out today with the next step that they could see to say, yes, Jesus, I'm giving my life to you. Some of you this morning are here and you have been struggling for a really long time with something, and the last thing you think you can do is ask for help. There's a guy in front of you that had to go to rehab when he was 39 years old. There ain't nothing to be embarrassed about. You don't have to leave here in the same shackles and chains that you've been in. You're here this morning and you think the only relief that you can find for the pain that's in your mind is to stop existing on this planet. Come, I'm begging you, come. You don't have to do this alone. There is no shame in this struggle. Franklin, we're in a room full of people that are just trying to figure it out. Like we're just trying to figure it out. But every journey starts with a step. Man, don't miss your moment today to take whatever that step is for you. Let me pray. God, thank you that you're the God that sees us. Thank you that you're the God who doesn't limit our chances. Thank you that you are the God that washes feet. You are the God that cries. You are the God that bleeds. You are the God that sets up altars in this world to say lowercase g. It's time for you to leave because the real God has shown up. And Jesus, thank you for meeting me in the lowest moments of my life when I felt like the only hope was to end it. And you showed up and you sent them sparrows. God, give us the courage to take whatever step it is. Thank you that you love us no matter what. Amen.